He looked me dead in the eyes. 4 years, a shared apartment, a ring on my finger, wedding invitations already ordered. And with all of that sitting between us, Cole opened his mouth and said the words I will never, for as long as I live, forget. You're not worthy of being my wife. I think I can find someone better. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I laughed, not politely, not nervously. I laughed from somewhere so deep inside me that it surprised us both. This is the story of what happens when someone tries to tell you your value. And you finally stop believing them. My name is Sienna, and I want you to stay until the very last word. Cole and I met through a mutual friend at a rooftop birthday party in our city's warehouse district. He was charming in that quiet, self-assured way, the kind of man who didn't need to command the room because the room always drifted toward him anyway. We talked for 3 hours that first night. By the end of the week, we'd already had our second date. The first 2 years were genuinely wonderful. We moved in together after 18 months, into a bright second-floor apartment with creaky hardwood floors and a kitchen too small for 2 people who both loved to cook. We'd bump elbows over the stove and laugh about it. We binged the same shows, ate at the same hole-in-the-wall restaurants nobody else had found yet, and spent Sunday mornings reading next to each other in comfortable silence. He'd leave coffee waiting on my nightstand before I woke up. He'd text me at 2 in the afternoon just to share something that made him think of me. He felt like home. When he proposed at the lake where we'd had our first date, quiet, private, just us, I said yes before he finished the sentence. I posted the ring picture, called my mom crying, started a wedding planning folder that same night. That was the last truly good moment we had. About 6 months into our engagement, something in Cole shifted. It started so slowly I almost didn't notice, the way fog rolls in. One evening, he looked at my dress and said, "That would be more flattering if you toned up a bit." He said it the way you'd comment on the weather, casual, matter of fact. I laughed it off. Then came the hair comments, then the suggestions about how I spoke in front of his friends. "You shouldn't have said that. You sounded like you didn't know what you were talking about." Then my career wasn't ambitious enough. Then my family was too simple. Then I needed to be, as he put it, more cultured if I was going to represent him properly in social settings. And instead of walking out, I changed. I cut my hair. I bought entirely new clothes. I took online courses on topics he approved of. I worked longer hours to chase a version of ambition that looked more like his. I smiled through dinners with his colleagues while he corrected me mid-sentence. I became a project he was trying to finish, and I let him. 3 months before our wedding, we sat down to finalize details. The caterer, the seating chart, the timeline. Then Cole mentioned, almost in passing, that his mother was worried I'd choose the wrong kind of dress. Not sophisticated enough, too expected. I asked what he meant. He told me. His voice was completely calm. That was the part that still haunts me. No rage, no cruelty in his tone. Just this cold, deliberate clarity, like he was reading something off a list. "I've been doing some thinking," he said, "and I've been settling. I'm starting to realize you don't have what it takes to be my wife. My family has concerns, and frankly, I think I can find someone better." Then he looked at me and said the sentence I want every woman hearing this to understand was not a reflection of her truth. It was a reflection of his. "You're not worthy of being my wife." I sat very still. And then, from somewhere I still can't fully explain, I laughed, not because it was funny, because in that moment, with absolute blinding clarity, I saw it. He had never been worthy of me. Cole's face went from smug to confused to angry in the span of about 4 seconds. He demanded to know what was funny. He raised his voice. He said I was being childish and dramatic. I picked up my purse. "Cole," I said very quietly, "you're right. We shouldn't get married. Not because I'm not worthy, but because I deserve someone who never had to convince himself that I was." And I walked out. My best friend Jade lived 20 minutes away. I drove there without music, without tears, Just this strange, hollow silence that felt, underneath it all, like the first honest breath I'd taken in months. The crying came later that night. 4 years is a long time to grieve, even when you know you made the right call. Cole called and texted relentlessly, first angry, calling me dramatic, then apologetic, blaming wedding stress, then condescending again. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life, Sienna." And finally, when I still didn't respond, "Good luck finding someone else at your age." I was 29. I found a small apartment across town. I painted it myself. I hung whatever I wanted on the walls without asking permission. I watched whatever I wanted on Friday nights without a commentary track. And slowly, so slowly, I started finding the parts of myself I'd spent 2 years quietly erasing. I picked up the hobby he'd called childish. I reconnected with the friends he'd never clicked with. I started therapy, genuinely one of the best decisions I've ever made. Through mutual friends, I heard Cole was spreading a story, that I'd had some kind of breakdown, and that's why I ended things. Classic. I didn't bother correcting the record. The people who mattered already knew. About 6 weeks after I moved out, Jade practically dragged me to her cousin's birthday gathering. A low-key Saturday night. 20 people. A backyard string light situation. I didn't want to go. I went. That's where I met Marcus. He was Jade's brother's best friend from college in town for the weekend. We ended up on the back porch for most of the night, talking about everything and nothing. Our favorite podcasts, our weirdest fears, a documentary we'd both seen by accident and couldn't stop thinking about. There was no performance, no evaluation. He asked questions and actually listened. He talked about his sister with this warmth that made my chest feel tight in the best possible way. And at no point, not once, did he comment on how I looked, what I wore, or who I could become. He seemed genuinely interested in who I actually was. We started seeing each other, long distance by 40 minutes, which we both found hilarious. His Roomba got stuck under the couch during our third date and made an unholy screeching sound right in the middle of a serious conversation. I set off his smoke detector 3 separate times trying to make dinner. Those moments didn't become tension. They became stories we told at parties. About 3 months into dating Marcus, I ran into Cole and his new girlfriend, Bryn, at a grocery store. Cole had moved fast. She was everything he'd told me I wasn't. Polished, well-connected, dressed like she'd stepped off a magazine page. I'd braced myself for this moment. The jealousy, the inadequacy, the old familiar ache. It didn't come. I felt nothing. Just a calm, settled recognition that that chapter of my life was finished. We exchanged polite hellos. Cole looked surprised by how comfortable I seemed. Bryn looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. The interaction lasted 30 seconds. It felt like graduating. 6 months after I moved in with Marcus, he proposed. Not at a restaurant, not in front of a crowd. We were having a picnic at a lake. Not the same one, a different one, ours. And he simply said he couldn't picture his life without me in it. The ring was his grandmother's, a vintage sapphire. I cried, I laughed, I said yes before he finished asking. That evening, as we were celebrating with champagne on the porch, my phone buzzed. Cole, heard about your engagement. Didn't realize things had gotten that serious. Hope you're not rushing into something you'll regret. I showed Marcus. He read it once, shook his head slowly, and said, "Some people never change, do they?" We blocked Cole's number that night. He found me on Instagram within the week. The messages started carefully, casual congratulations, questions about how I'd been. Then they became personal, then desperate. "I've been thinking about us a lot lately. I made a huge mistake. Are you sure you're making the right decision?" That last one, asking me if I was making the right decision, sent a cold shock through me. The audacity, the absolute audacity of the man who told me I was not worthy of his name, now questioning the choices I made after I walked away from him. I stopped responding entirely. Our wedding day was imperfect in every way that makes something real. It rained that morning. Supposedly good luck. My veil caught on a rose bush during photos. Marcus's nephew announced loudly that he needed to use the bathroom right in the middle of our vows. We were surrounded by people who loved us exactly as we were, not who they wanted us to become, just us. During the reception, Jade, my maid of honor, and the woman who has held me together through more dark nights than I can count, had my phone. Cole called 3 times. She silenced it without a word, walked over, and whispered in my ear. I looked at her. We both started laughing, the helpless, disbelieving kind. He called my wedding. We came home from our honeymoon to 17 missed calls and a string of Instagram messages that escalated from, "I need to talk to you," to, "Please don't ignore me," to, "I made a huge mistake letting you go." His words, not mine. He let me go, as though he'd done me a favor. We were unpacking when my phone rang again. Cole. Without hesitating, Marcus picked it up. "Hello?" Sienna's phone. A long pause on the other end. Cole asked if Sienna was available. Marcus, cool, unhurried, completely unbothered, said, "She's a little busy right now unpacking from our honeymoon. This is her husband, Marcus. Is there something I can help you with?" The silence on the other end was so long I could hear it from across the room. Cole stammered something about just wanting to offer his congratulations. Marcus thanked him, calmly, told him we appreciated the thought, but that Sienna had fully moved on and would prefer not to maintain contact going forward. No anger, no territory, no raised voice. Just a steady, quiet line being drawn. He hung up and looked at me. I just stared at him. That, right there, is what a real partner does. Cole sent one final message. "I understand now. I'm sorry for everything. You deserve to be happy." I read it once. I set my phone down, and I went back to unpacking our life. Jade told me later that Bryn, the perfect woman Cole had moved on to, had reconnected with someone from her past and left Cole rather abruptly. He apparently told anyone who'd listen that she had blindsided him, that he hadn't deserved it, that it came out of nowhere. Sound familiar? Last I heard, Bryn is expecting her first child with that old flame. They look genuinely happy. And Cole is somewhere learning, slowly and painfully, that the way you treat people has a way of following you. Here is what I want you to carry with you. Worthy is not a verdict someone else gets to hand down. It is not something you earn by shrinking yourself small enough to fit inside someone else's expectations. It is something you recognize, in yourself, for yourself, the moment you finally stop letting someone else define it. Sometimes the worst moment of your life is the door to the best chapter of it. He told me I wasn't worthy. I just laughed. My husband answered his calls, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, story reads, your story's told.